Spectrum, leave a space, type in your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
A very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. I'm your host, Edmond Kizito. On Spectrum tonight, what is the justification for the increment of the electricity tariff as announced today? Ugandans are bracing themselves for yet another tough time following the announcement today that the electricity tariff has been increased. The increment was announced by the Electricity Regulatory Authority alongside the Ministry of Energy. This increment comes at a time when Ugandans are pressed with many challenges connected with the high cost of living. It also comes at a time when many Ugandans are unhappy about the quality of power supply and related services, including billing. This development has been greeted with a lot of bitterness, and many Ugandans are now asking, why increase the cost of electricity at a time when many people are in dire straits? What about the Salim Saleh report, which indicated that Ugandans are being cheated through high tariffs? Although the government has explained that the increment is because it is ending the provision of subsidies to the power sector, many people are asking, how about the promise of opening the Bujagali hydroelectric power dam that would provide cheap electricity? Power is a key factor of production in Uganda, and recent developments have indicated that the cost of goods and services is largely driven by many factors, but key among them is electricity. Are you aware about how the new tariff is likely to affect you as an individual, your business, or your home? And why exactly is the tariff being raised at this time? And will this in any way improve the quality of services that you have been receiving? These and many other questions will form the basis of our discussion on Spectrum tonight. Our guests tonight, Dr. Benon Mutambi, the Chief Executive of the Electricity Regulatory Authority. You're most welcome, Dr. Mutambi.
Thank you very much, Edmond, and dear listeners.
We are also joined by Engineer Norbert Semitala, Director of Technical Regulation at the Electricity Regulatory Authority. You're most welcome, Engineer Semitala.
Thank you very much, and good evening, listeners.
Our third guest is Mr. Dickens Kamugisha, Executive Director of AFIEGO. AFIEGO is the African Institute for Energy Governance. You're most welcome, Mr. Kamugisha.
Yeah, thank you, Edmond, and good evening, listeners.
All right, Dr. Mutambi, because the question people are asking right now, and I would like you to give us the details of this. Why now?
Dear listeners, we really all along have been hard-pressed as far as regards the increase in electricity costs. And as you may have been following our debates and the information we have been disseminating, we have been informing the public over the past so many months that there is a likelihood of the tariff to adjust. And this is really, we do appreciate the circumstances that the Ugandans are living in at the moment with high inflation. But the issue of adjusting the electricity tariffs is something that we couldn't avoid at this particular moment, because as we speak, government is subsidizing you and me up to the tune of 60%. What we are paying is 40% of the tariff that we should be paying. And this level of, for instance, this financial year, government had budgeted for 417 billion to go towards subsidizing we electricity consumers. But by November, that money had already been spent. And we are projecting that by the end of the financial year, government would have required closer to 600 billion to subsidize electricity consumers. When we look at the amount of money required just to go into subsidies, it's about 26% of the total budget for health, education, and agriculture. And certainly the government has reached a point and said this situation is unsustainable, the budget can no longer allow.
All right, before we go into this, the other figures, talk to us about the subsidies. With this new tariff, what will the subsidy be from government?
Government, fortunately, is not running away from subsidizing the sector. Government is continuing to subsidize the sector, but what it has done is a change in strategy of targeting of these subsidies. First of all, government has decided to convert the debts which were owed by the UEB successor companies, those companies that broke out of UEB, which were paying about $32 million per annum in form of debt service. They have converted that into equity earning zero return, which is equivalent more or less to waiving it. And secondly, government has made a commitment to continue meeting the capacity payments of thermal plants or these heavy fuel oil plants. So that is the form of subsidy that government has maintained now with these new tariff adjustments. But now the money which is going to be saved out of raising the tariff that will come as a result of the reduction in the subsidies is going to be targeted towards the development of more reliable, cheaper electricity generation, especially Karuma, Ayago, and other projects, so that the Ugandans can be assured of cheaper, reliable supply of electricity. And don't forget, Edmond, the saying that if you buy somebody fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, you will feed him forever. So this is the situation where government is.
Okay, or even better, give him a line as well after teaching him. Let's talk about the figures themselves. What was the rate before? What is it now? Norbert, would you like to give us that figure? Engineer Semitala.
Yeah, thank you, Edmond. You see, we have categories of consumers. We have domestic, we have commercial, we have medium industrial, we have large industrial, and then there's one other one called street lights. Up till now, the tariff has been, for the domestic category, 385 shillings per unit, and it has now moved or been adjusted to 524. Then the commercial category, it has been 358 shillings per unit, and now it's moving to 487. Then the medium industrial, those are industrialists who are slightly
small factories, like water bottlers,
medium size, you could say, just before the large ones, is 333 before, and now is moving to 458. And then the large industrial is 184, and then it's now moving to 312. And then the last one, which is street lights, is 364 and moving to 488.
All right, so basically you have an average of 40%.
Yeah, more or less.
And the large industrial takes the biggest hit at 70% almost.
69%.
69%. Why is that?
Maybe I could explain that. When government started subsidizing this sector in 2005, on the onset of the drought that we faced and the commissioning of the thermal generation in this country, a strategic decision was taken to subsidize more of the industrial consumers. The large industries were given a larger share of these subsidies in order to protect their competitiveness. So over time, the largest percentage of the subsidies has been going toward the large industrial customers. If you look at their tariff, they have been paying 184.8 shillings per unit, while the domestic and the commercial, for example, we are paying 358.6, yes, showing you the size of subsidization that was going to these large industries. And if you compare the large industries in Uganda, what they are paying now for electricity, and their counterparts in Kenya, there is quite a big disparity. The Ugandan industrial consumers are paying relatively much lower than their counterparts in Kenya. So in this adjustment, as the subsidies get reduced, the industrial customers are the ones taking the larger hit, because of the earlier policy on subsidization, larger subsidization towards these large industries.
All right, so it's payback time for them. Very briefly before coming to Mr. Kamugisha, Tanzania today did the same thing that you did. They raised their tariffs by 40%. They wanted 155%, and it's coming into effect on the 15th of January, same time as you. Did you talk to them?
It was really a coincidence. You are the one who has just showed me the information, Dickens, sorry, Mr. Kizito, this evening. I hadn't seen the information from Tanzania. All I knew that Tanzania also has been going through a lot of difficulties. You know, they have been going through a lot of road shedding, and they have also emergency generation, and basically the sector has also been over-subsidized, and time came when really also their subsidies were coming to unsustainable levels. So it was also inevitable, I think, in the case of Tanzania, that the tariff had to adjust.
Mr. Kamugisha, we were expecting Bujagali to come online, and is this something you expected, the tariff raise?
No, of course, I think at the end of it all, you see, whatever is happening in Uganda, I think was bound to happen because of the problems we have been experiencing, and some of them, I think, are created by government in terms of planning. Because sometime back, I think in October, even ERA had promised Uganda that by November and December would be getting some units from Bujagali. So the first unit would come on board in the grid in November, the second in December. That one failed to happen. And you know, if you have that projection and it fails, there is a road that is going to get disorganized. And that's why I think even the government had decided not to pay the thermal companies because it thought the power was coming. It ended up not coming. So what is the result? But I think if you look at the subsidies in Uganda and compared to Kenya to Tanzania, you will see that somehow, somewhere, the actual cost of producing a unit of electricity in Tanzania and in Kenya has been very consistent. But in Uganda, the actual cost of producing a unit of electricity has not been consistent. Reason? There are very many factors that consume the costs which are not necessarily electricity. You take an example of when we renovated On Falls Dam. The intention was to increase the power generation of the dam from 60 megawatts to 180 megawatts. We built the Chira Dam to produce 200 megawatts. Right now it is producing around maybe 90 megawatts out of the 200. So that means that, you know, if the unit cost for each unit in that dam is going to be factored, whether you are producing it or not, the fact that you have invested, you have to factor it in the cost. So you brought here the thermal companies. The thermal companies, and I don't think that the ERA, to be honest, even it knows how much fuel, liters of fuel is consumed for producing a unit of thermal electricity. Today you will be hearing ERA saying, no, they are trying to review the concession of Umeme. But for the last 7 years, you do not know what Umeme has been doing. For example, they tell you they have invested $100 million US in the sector. But if you ask the ERA that is supposed to regulate, where is that investment? What is it that it has produced for Ugandans? They will say actually they are going to begin to do forensic investigation to see whether that investment, yes, whether it is real or not real. So the other area you find that, you know, when the UEB was disbanded, you created generation company, Uganda Electricity Generation Company,
yes,
to do generation.
Transmission.
So it decided to bring in ESCOM.
Yes.
You had the Uganda Electricity Distribution Company to do distribution. It also decided to bring in Umeme.
Yes.
So all these companies, which are, you have electrification agents, all these companies, you have to spend on administration. If today you ask ERA how much money is spent on administration of these companies, all the major 7 companies, including the thermal companies, how much money do we spend on those ones, which impact on the cost of electricity in Uganda? You'll find actually they also don't have the information. So ultimately, me, I would not have any problem if the government was removing subsidies, but ensuring that actually the cost of electricity is real, not just inflated by inefficiencies, incompetencies, and poor planning. You would find that actually it is okay. But when you say that a unit of electricity in Uganda here is around 800, 1,000 shillings,
800,
unit,
847 or
yes, around there, you ask, is it the actual
cost,
or it is because of all these duplicated companies, dams that don't produce? Of course, you have already heard that even the former Minister of Energy was disputing the capacity of Bujagali to produce 250 megawatts. So if you produce, you build Bujagali to produce 250 megawatts and it ends up producing less than even half, definitely that cost must be paid by
the consumer.
So in other words, for the government to be a bit lenient to customers, it decided to subsidize its incompetencies, not necessarily help the consumers. So, but today you will find that, even if you increase the cost, the tariffs for large industrial consumers, at the end of the day, I think you are going to affect Ugandans. Because these companies have a right for them, they can increase the cost of products, the prices of products. And these Ugandans must go there. Some of these mothers you hear dying on health centers, some of the problems are the electricity. The school fees that peasants must pay are also going to be factored in the tariffs. So whether you say the power is consumed by the rich, I think the poor are also going to be affected. And then you have a situation where the government of Uganda has been spending billions of money in rural electrification. You take power, for example, to Buhweju in Bushenyi. 95% of the households in Bushenyi,
they can't afford it.
They can't afford. They will try to be sure that, some of them, they want to be seen that they are rich. So they connect, but they even don't put on lights. Oh. We are doing research in Ntungamo, around 35 kilometers from the main road to a certain area called there is a TTC. Along that, there are over 1,500 households, but only 27 households are connected to that power. And out of those 27, there is no any household that pays more than 20,000 a month. So how much money was invested to connect electricity for 35 kilometers? And then if you don't have anybody consuming that electricity, it means the big consumer is the one paying for that investment that you don't benefit. So there are many things that you find. If ERA and government decided to say, let consumers pay for the actual cost of electricity, they need to be very clear that in Uganda there is no concern for the poor, for the rich. Every person is there on his own, and for that matter, don't have these programs of electrification where you find I pay taxes, and those taxes have to go to rectify an area that is not going even to use that electricity. I think it doesn't make sense.
That's absolute capitalism.
Yes,
that's what you're advocating.
If the government is not willing to help it,
but the government is supposed to balance things out. It helps the poor, taxes the rich, helps the poor the world over.
No, but that's what has been happening. If you see MTN, how much money does it pay in taxes? It pays billions of money, and those are the taxes. Because for me, what I've been telling Ugandans is even the subsidies that government pays are not its own money. It's the taxpayers' money. It is my money, actually. So I should even ask government whether it is paying those subsidies in the right way. If I find it is not, I should not allow it.
Let's have Dr. Mutambi responding. But before you do that, you're saying it was a bad thing to unbundle UEP. They should have had one unit run by the government.
If there was no better program for ensuring that the private companies don't come here just to make profits and run out and take it away, then UEP was better.
Right.
You'd have Ugandans making that money, maybe investing it here. But these private companies, foreign companies, they actually make profits and take it away.
Dr. Mutambi.
Yeah, thank you very much. Dickens, you are raising the issue of affordability, that actually the low-income consumers won't afford this the cost of electricity. Now, I start to agree with you that yes, there is a question of affordability, and this has been on, but this has to do with the incomes of the majority of Ugandans. And what we have done in the design of this tariff increase, which has been announced, is that we have tried to protect the low-income Ugandans. And for that matter, we have not affected the tariff for the first 15 units for the low-income Ugandans, because we know the majority of the low-income Ugandans consume between 15 to actually 50 units. From the statistics we have, for example, over 100,000 customers consume less than 15 units of electricity. And those are statistics that can be verified. And therefore, if that tariff of the first 15 units is at 100 shillings, that means that the bill of that particular customer in a month would be actually less than 5,000 shillings.
So the poor people have not been affected.
Yeah, the poor people are not affected by this tariff increase. And actually, if you consume up to 50 units even, your monthly bill for electricity will not exceed 20,000 shillings.
That's for a two-bedroom house, roughly?
That's
two-bedroom house, roughly?
Well, yeah, two-bedroom house, and
3 bedrooms, maybe 35,000?
Yeah, because the statistics we have is that the majority of the consumers outside the urban centers actually consume in the range of 30 to 50 units. So, we have taken cognizance of the low-income Ugandans. And the issue of electricity, the electricity passing in an area and very few people connecting to it, that is a major concern for rural electrification. And this is being addressed by government. Government has put in place a scheme to pay for the connection costs. It's called output-based scheme, which is starting which is starting very soon, whereby the cost of connections will be met by government with the support of the development partners. So that recognition is in place. But you see, the whole essence of electricity, why do you electrify an area? You electrify an area not because there are people who can use electricity there and then, but electricity is a stimulant to growth, to the incomes of the people.
Right.
Okay. And the fundamental, maybe I should raise this particular issue. You see, all this debate to increase the tariffs, we have been living with it for over, it should have happened like a year ago. But we have been debating it. We have been consulting. We have been moving around. We have been looking at all possible ways of handling this issue. And now the challenge becomes, the fundamental question is, availability vis-a-vis the cost. Which one do you take? If you don't, should we raise the tariff so that the sector is sustainable and we guarantee reliable supply to Ugandans of electricity, or you keep the tariff heavily subsidized with the delays in the release of subsidies, with the stress on the budget, the UTCL defaulting to pay these companies, some of them switching off as you have been reading in the media, and the whole economy will be disorganized.
Yes, Spectrum listeners on Radio 1. Tonight, what is the justification for the increment of the electricity tariff as announced today? We'll go for a break. We'll be back to stay tuned.
John, Mike and I, we go back a bit. We knew John at the beginning, working for someone else. But he was different. He had vision, saw opportunities. He started working towards his goal, opened his own garage, and worked, learning the hard way. His reputation spread. Trust, consistency, quality. Soon people were coming to him from all parts. He made himself and his whole street prosper, and also helped friends, seeing potential in people and helping them on. But John never shouts about all his success. He's just who he is. Special.
So here's to men like John, who make a difference, who enjoy Nile Special, the rich, satisfying taste from the source. Nile Special. You've earned it.
Not for sale to persons under 18.
Fellow Ugandans, the United Nations has declared that access to the internet is a universal human right, along with access to water and food. Like the UN, we believe that every Ugandan should enjoy this right. We believe that access to information, education, and improved communication through the internet will build this great nation. And it is because of what we so strongly believe that we are giving every single MTN customer 10 megabytes of free data on their mobiles. And everyone can start experiencing it now.
Follow us on facebook.com/MTNUG or twitter.com/MTNUgandaCare. This announcement was brought to you by MTN.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90 is brought to you by Stanbic Bank.
Welcome back on Spectrum. Tonight, what is the justification for the increment of the electricity tariff as announced today? Our guest tonight, Dr. Benon Mutambi, the Chief Executive Officer of the Electricity Regulatory Authority, Engineer Norbert Semitala, Director Technical Regulation at the ERA, and Mr. Dickens Kamugisha, Executive Director of the AFIEGO, that's the African Institute for Energy Governance, a research and advocacy group. You'll be able to call in and contribute to this discussion. You can ask questions direct. I'll read out the numbers in that time comes. Engineer Semitala, when Bujagali finally comes online, maybe February, will these tariffs come down? And why has it taken such a long time for it to come online?
Thank you, Edmond. I will stay consistent because my CEO has been talking about the cost, so he will tell you about the cost aspects of the Bujagali, but I will specifically discuss the technical side.
Right.
That's where my area is.
Please go on.
Specifically, Bujagali, as you've said, has delayed. We had actually expected Bujagali by the end of last year, but it has been something extremely technical and sometimes very difficult to explain. But let me put it this way: when you are you put together something that you have been putting together, Bujagali has been the construction of Bujagali has been over 40 or 48 months by now.
About 44 years.
44 months.
Almost 4 years.
Almost 4 and or so years.
Yes.
You have put so many things together, and you reasonably think that everything is okay and it will go fine. And you project that on because of the schedules, and you have series of protocols of things you've done, so much nitty-gritty going
nuts and bolts
and things. You really expect that everything goes fine,
right?
And then you set a date that I'll be ready.
You switch it on and then it begins to creep.
No, you don't switch it on. Actually, before you switch it on, you do tests, what we call commissioning tests. Now those commissioning tests could even last a month. So you can imagine tests that can last a month.
Yes.
Something very small.
Right.
And these are machines. You have a machine which is going to rotate like a 40-ton rotor. It's a rotating member.
Yes.
Just one part of the machine is 40 tons. And it's not aligned by just 1 millimeter.
Go on,
That's a big problem.
Go on.
That's a very big problem. You can't start the machine.
1 millimeter, 40 tons. Go on.
Yes. No, 1 millimeter.
Go on. I've been doing the figures.
You cannot just say switch it on because it's going to rotate at 150 revolutions per minute. There is a big problem if you have missed by 1 millimeter. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You have to sit down and put it apart again. And putting it apart and again and putting it back again may take another month. Now, the public really needs to understand that the statement that must be made in these things is if all goes well.
Right.
We'll be here on 15th December. What must always be a rider there is if all goes well. I'll give you an example. Just to complete this issue. If you had money, Mr. Dickens, 100 million, you go to Toyota, you buy a brand new pickup. Yes. Usually they will not advise you to just drive it straight to Karamoji or Gulu.
Yes.
On that very day.
They
Why?
said do a test drive.
No, they would not allow. They would say no. First drive around town for 3 weeks. But it's brand new. Why don't you go around just straight out? Just hit the road. So these engineering issues sometimes it's very difficult to explain them any better than this. But
something could go wrong.
I hope I've tried. But I also wanted to finish this Bujagali discussion with the follow-up question by Mr. Dickens, Kamugisha.
Yes.
When he mentioned the 250 megawatts, it will not be there. It's not proper to say it will not be 250 megawatts.
Yes.
Because what goes into a hydropower plant of a size of Bujagali, over $860 million or so, is not just mere talk.
Yes.
A lot of engineering work goes in. You have a series of studies and zero down to what you call design parameters. Principally, the design parameters that go into a plant are determined by a multitude of factors. But what I wanted to say is that in the case of Bujagali, the plant has not been designed to deliver 250 megawatts on full-time basis.
Yes.
It has been optimized as 250, but it means that if you have, ordinarily it may be delivering anything between 180, 200 as base load.
That's the full capacity.
No. The full capacity,
is 250. But running capacity is about
maybe 180, 190, 200. Okay? And you see, the water that is going to go into Bujagali is coming from the complex, which is the Nalubale and Chira. And you can see today, Nalubale and Chira actually at peak give us around 200 megawatts, which means that's already the same water. That's already the same water that is going to
should be able to give us 200
downstream. But remember that now this Bujagali has also been dealt with a dam. It has what you call load following parameters. I don't want to go into the technicalities, but the point I wanted to make is it's more efficient than the old systems.
Right.
Now, that reservoir should now be able also, you optimize that at peak, because what we are trying to avoid is a situation that
you have an overflow of water.
You have some reservoir, and then at peak you have a deficit of 50 megawatts. Remember, 50 megawatts is a very serious amount of power.
It's a lot.
Which can put away a plant like Agreco.
Correct.
Now, if you don't have it, then it means you have to buy Agreco, and Benon here will tell you how much Agreco 50 megawatts cost you. So you don't wait and you don't have the 50 megawatts. You build it, but at that bad time, which is normally at the peak, you are able now to call in your another 50. So Bujagali will give you 250 at peak.
Right.
I want the listeners to understand that these things are all thought about. You can't just put 860 million or so dollars without serious thought in it.
Right.
You see?
Okay.
So there is significant effort that really goes into this kind.
So it's true, 250 we shall at some stage get 250 and have a good deal.
I mean, you see, there is also one other thing you have to know.
Yes.
That whatever goes into a design of a plant are also a couple of assumptions. One of which is, in fact, they could call them educated assumptions, hydrology.
Yes.
Nobody can tell you for 100% sure that there will be 100 cubic meters per second flowing on this time and this.
Yes.
So you have...
It's an estimate.
So it's informed, what do you call it? Educated guesses.
Right.
What do you call it? Okay?
Yeah.
So if it happens that one day it's not 800, don't say, what did I tell you? Because none of you can even... So you have to work with something.
All right.
So I don't want the public to be put in a situation to think that these guys were wrong, these guys were wrong. Really, people...
Your word as a technical man, and we're going to believe you tonight.
Thank you.
We have a good deal. $860 million spent, we shall have 250 megawatts, we have a good deal overall.
Let's leave it at that.
Okay.
Dr. Mutambi.
Yes, Edmond, on the issue of the impact of Bujagali on the tariff.
Yes.
You know, Bujagali is helping us to displace the diesel generation plants.
Yes.
That is one fundamental principle. And we have been paying around 30 US cents per unit from these diesel generators.
Yes.
Bujagali is estimated in the initial days of in the initial period of debt service that we shall be paying around 10 to 10.5 US cents per unit.
Yes.
That means that you are displacing power which you were paying at 30 cents and replacing it with one where you
cheaper
are paying
power.
one third, almost one third.
Yes.
And what has that one helped to do? What it has helped is that initially the full cost of a unit of electricity has been at around 800 shillings. But the public, the consuming public, like myself and yourself, did not know that you were paying 800 indirectly because the government was subsidizing 60%. Yes, Big Dad was paying the rest. Okay. Now, because when Bujagali comes, it will help to reduce that cost from 800, and that's why the cost is going 524. Okay, because it is not going to eliminate the entire subsidy component which the Big Dad was paying, which was about 60%.
Yes.
And Dickens raised a fundamental issue of cost that does a regulator know this cost. I want to assure Dickens and all Ugandans that that is our major role as a regulator. We have to audit the costs of these companies, and we have to know the costs because we are the ones who allow these costs, and we have to be convinced that these costs are reasonable and that these costs are prudently incurred. One of these, I think Dickens, you must have seen even our adverts recently, advertising for somebody to audit the costs of some of these IPPs. And that is the whole purpose.
The
because these costs, the independent power producers. And Dickens talked about a fundamental issue of efficiency, that there is a lot of wastage, there is a lot of what. Now, dear listeners, it is important that we appreciate this, that we need to move at all fronts. We can't move on only one front of improving efficiency. We have to move at all fronts. Make sure the sector is sustainable, and this is the first move we have made of adjusting the tariff. But you know we are moving on the front of efficiency improvement in the sector. That's why we remember we called a public hearing on Umeme, and we are amending the license of Umeme. We are setting them new parameters which are going to enhance their efficiency from where their current levels of operation. So we are moving on all fronts. We can't move on only one front.
So basically, when Bujagali comes online, it's the government that gets the benefits. The subsidies, they'll save money to and some other things.
But you see, this money which will be saved is going to be put in Karuma and other generation projects.
Right.
That's why I use the other analogy of the fish. Do you buy somebody fish every day, or you teach him how to fish? And the government is going to take that money to build cheaper generation, which Ugandans will enjoy for the next so many years.
Mr. Kamugisha, so we have a good deal.
No, of course, the issues of electricity in Uganda, I think, and basically when you look at the time when they have decided to increase the electricity tariffs, when you consider it with all the problems that are happening, interest rates, I don't know whether government really knows that it is responsible for the survival of Ugandans or not. Because I'm very sure these tariffs...
Well, but you are opposing the power for the poor people. Now you're talking about subsidies.
No, I mean, for me, I'm very sure that if the government and these government institutions decided to clean the sector, you would actually find the cost of electricity, unit cost of electricity, actually can reduce. And that would mean that actually the government subsidies would also reduce. Because I remember very well, ERA instituted a technical committee to review the Semitala report. In that technical committee report, which the ERA was heading, they found that actually these thermal companies were inflating fuel amount of fuel used by around 200. The Semitala report had said it was around 2 million liters of fuel per month inflated over and above they were supposed to use. Then the technical committee that was headed by ERA said it was around 230,000 liters of fuel per month in inflation.
10%.
Yes. So if we were to look at even that inflated fuel amount, you would find that if you eliminated that one, it can have an impact on the subsidies. If you went ahead to say, what is the relevance of having a Uganda Electricity Generation Company and then ESCOM, have Uganda Electricity Distribution Company and then you have UMEME. So if you were to look at all those levels, you would find that actually you reduce the costs of electricity. And even if you were to say consumers should pay for the actual costs, they would pay for real costs.
In plain language, you're saying UEB was better.
Of course, it was not better for me. It was still government. Even today,
the format was better. One company doing everything.
One company, because
right now have four.
I wouldn't want to have two companies for transmitting 200 megawatts.
Right now we have generation of transmission, which is I think.
Because now you have
by the government, you have distribution, then you have the ERA.
In real terms, you have like 7 companies producing small electricity. Then you have like 2 main companies generating electricity, Uganda Electricity Generation and ESCOM. And then you have 2 companies distributing, that is Uganda Electricity Distribution and UMEME. So they are distributing smaller things, but if you had a company that is well managed, I'm very sure you would find these unnecessary costs are not there. And even if the consumers were to pay the actual costs, it would be affordable.
And
but right now, you can't say that really a Ugandan, a poor person in the village should pay 800 shillings per unit.
Well,
and you say you are a government. Because while it is reasonable for you to increase and the government to take the money that would have paid in subsidies to education, to health, to what, you must be very mindful. Every time you increase electricity here, there are many people who die in these health centers because the health centers cannot manage.
That poor Ugandan or the low-income Ugandan, I wouldn't like to call him a poor Ugandan, the low-income earner in the rural area. That's why he's protected at the first 15 units.
Under the 15
That's why that lifeline has been left unattached, Dickens. That shows you that government is cognizant of the fact that it has to protect the low-income earners in the rural area.
I don't encourage people really to use 15 units. Otherwise, electricity is becoming irrelevant. 15 units is nothing.
All right, let's hear from you.
If you aim at 15, there is a problem.
Listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. Our numbers 0414 348 111 0312 260 390 0312 261 390. When you call in, please tell us your name and where you are calling from. Hello.
I'm Kakaire.
Yes, sir.
When you look at the increment with regard to the tariff, domestic, commercial, medium, industrial, agriculture, and the satellite, the average is around 120. My question is, why is it that the increment large industrial segment is 69%, which is an equivalent of 128 shillings, bigger, yet in our quest to have industrialization, we would have had a less percentage increment in the large industrial sector. Thank you.
Spectrum, hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir, your name?
My name is Andrew Bagenda.
Andrew.
One, I want to start with I listened to the technical person. The reality from his submission is that we are likely to have about averagely 180 megawatts from that Bujagari. When you hear the president talking, that shows the president not given the right information. He speaks like somebody who has been given information that at all times the level for this 250. I think that needs to be really put to him clearly. Number two, my former lecturer about 12 years back, Mr. Benon Mutambi, at one time when he was teaching us public sector economics, I remember you mentioning world over that the government does not run away from the utility sector. But electricity, water, make this topic a bit wider than even actually just electricity. How has the government come in? Because these are key factors in influencing production in the country. You cannot talk about electricity, and indeed that gentleman is talking about the figures. Honestly speaking, you go ahead and investigate this called Greco. Those figures are not correct. Even this list of companies coming around, everybody wants to get profits. When you will overhaul the entire system, you will be able to reduce the price of fuel, power.
Spectrum, hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir, your name?
Yes, good evening. Thank you for that topic. Now, I just want to find out who is telling us, my name is Timothy, who is telling us a lie, because the government says that the money we are getting from oil and all these taxes, which is under exploration, is the one we are going to use for this new dam. Now, when somebody sits there and then he says the money they are going to save from this is the one going to be used on the dam, then I start wondering what is going to be used for the dam. While we know the dam is expensive, but we know the amount of money being obtained from the oil prices and so on is quite substantial amount of money. Can we get a clarification on that? Thank you.
Spectrum, hello? Please switch off your radio. Could you see? Okay. Spectrum, hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir, your name?
This is Jacob in Kitante.
Yes, Jacob.
Hello?
You're live on Spectrum, Jacob.
Yes, please. Now, I want to agree with the gentleman who says that maybe one company would have helped to reduce on the cost. You see, now the power problem in Uganda is quite political. The creation of all these many companies is for patronage, to provide jobs for cadres and the rest of the people who really want to say, we love this, we love government, but not to make the power production efficient. Thank you.
But let's have one final caller. Spectrum, hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir, your name?
My name is Heidi.
Very well, thank you. Your name?
Obed from Kampala. It's good to hear Mr. Dickens, who I think I'm informed is from civil society, talking that big, but I think he owes an apology to Ugandans, because bottom line is the reason we're having increased tariff and whatever is because we don't have enough hydropower for the country. It's because we're running thermal generators, and Dickens comes to the world of civil society organization that caused us a problem 10 years ago. We would be having probably 3 bijagaries now going on, not even this one bijagari that we are already complaining that is not getting finished in time. We lost it 10 years ago, and largely because of some civil society where Dickens Kamugisha comes from, and even some politicians. So probably, to best of my knowledge, probably Dickens owes us an apology from his world where he comes from.
Dr. Mutambi, maybe you can kick that off.
Okay. I would like to thank all the listeners who have called in. And the Kakire raised the issue of the increase in large industries being larger, and that it will kill the large industries. Like I had explained during my submission, that the large industries, if you look at the tariff which they are paying, 184, it has been heavily over-subsidized compared to the other customer categories. Now, with the reduction in subsidies, okay, the largest increase had to be proportionately going to the large industries. But still, at the current level of tariffs, if you look at the new levels of tariffs for large industries, they compare much more favorably than the tariffs for the large industries within the region compared to the other customer categories. So I think, in the spirit of fairness to the other customer categories, I think it was fair to let this slightly larger increase for the large industries. We do appreciate the need for our large industries to remain competitive. We do appreciate the need for industrialization, but we believe that this is not necessarily going to keep the spirit of industrialization. There was somebody who called in, my student, and it reminded me of my old days of lecturing when I used to teach public sector economics. And indeed, I still believe in those principles that government should not run away from the public sector. And indeed, government is not running away, like I explained. It is only the targeting of subsidies that is changing. And that's why I said that government, instead of targeting the end user tariff, dropping in money every month to subsidize the tariff, it rather subsidize the capital costs of these power plants. So that when the plant is completed, it is able to offer power at a cheaper cost that is going to be enjoyed by Ugandans for a longer period of time. That's basically the change in strategy. But the government will keep on putting in the money in the sector.
All right.
Somebody raised an issue of who is telling a lie that money to develop Karuma is going to come from oil. Yes, I agree with you, because the budget of government can be financed from many other sources, from oil, from taxes, from everywhere.
They could collect a bit from different
sources. So the funding can come from various sources. But now what we are talking about is that if this monster called subsidies that we have been living with is growing and eating a bigger chunk of this money that government is collecting from various sources, then the government would be left with limited resources to allocate to other areas.
Right.
That's basically what we are saying.
Okay.
And we normally say money is fungible. So when it comes to the aspect of allocating your money, when it's already in your pocket, you cannot distinguish when you are going to buy that this coin came from selling rice, and this one came from oil, and this one came from tomatoes.
It's all the same money.
It's all the same money.
Engineer, talk to us about the 180 megawatts again. Somebody, Andrew Bagenda.
I think he was just trying to, I want to believe he was more or less complimenting that he has henceforth been made more, well, just to get the point is that Bujagali was not designed to be 250 megawatts full throttle. It would probably work between 180 200 on average as base load, but it will be called upon after the water has been reserved for that critical period during the peak to top up
to 250.
So the point that listeners have to know is that you cannot have, it was never designed at 250 all the time.
Okay, just like a little bit, maybe like a motor vehicle, 200 kilometers per hour, but most times you're not 80.
No. Now let's put it this way. I've bought a 4-ton truck.
Yes.
But on average, I probably need 3 tons because I'm going to be carrying produce of 3 tons.
Yes.
But I don't wait until I need an extra ton and then buy the 4-ton truck. But on average, maybe 3 days a week I may need the other 1 ton. I could as well buy 4 tons
instead of 3.
Yeah. So that's the point.
Very clear.
So you size the plant.
You're a family of 3 and you buy a bus that in case you produce more, you will fuel the bus.
That's very abstract. Dickens,
let's have money as a winder.
Yes, I think the chorus was saying that actually a civil society stopped to
cause the shortage.
And it is the one causing the shortage. I think in Uganda here, people should be saying civil society has been doing great work. Because I'm imagining if today they are saying Bujagali is like to produce 180 megawatts. If it was built when the other company that had invested in corruption, the ES, if it had not left, it would have ended up producing even 50 megawatts. So we helped that company to go, and maybe this one may be better.
But Dickens, don't you think fundamentally the draw of Bujagali has been our major disaster?
You know very well that the company that left, actually it is not us that chased it away. But it was involved in corruption, and this government was the one engineering corruption. So,
regardless of how it left, but the delay really is what that we are suffering.
If you are corrupt, you cannot do things on time.
We have to go. Thank you very much, dear guest, Dr. Benon Mutambi, CEO of the Electricity Regulatory Authority. Thank you for coming to Spectrum. Mr. Dickens Kamugisha, Executive Director of AFIEGO, that's the African Institute for Energy Governance, and Engineer Norbert Semitala, Director of Technical Regulation at the ERA. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond. Spectrum, we'll be back tomorrow.
Just like an uncut diamond is brought to life by unmatched skill and dedication, only our brewmaster holds the secret to crafting a crystal malt lager. Under the exacting international standards at Nile Breweries, he uses only the finest, most carefully selected grains of roasted crystal malt and sets in motion the delicate process of releasing their full roast. The result is a world-class beer with a fresher aroma, a richer golden color, and a maltier taste.
Nile Gold Crystal Malt Lager. Beyond an ordinary malt.
Not for sale to persons under 18.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90 was brought to you by Stanbic Bank.
The views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of this radio station or
Now, this argument about the